Let's see how far we can push the little old Boss OD-3. I'm going to be using the Boss G7 EQ pedal to try and manipulate the sound of the OD-3 so that as best I can try and match the sound of these 5 classic overdrive pedals. I'm placing the EQ pedal after the OD-3 because that way it'll have more influence on the overall sound. If you put the EQ pedal before the overdrive, it more adjusts the compression and the saturation of each frequency band. Would still be at the mercy of the kind of inherent overall sound of the OD-3. In an ideal world, you might have an EQ pedal on either side of the overdrive pedal, but I just want to see how close we can get just using one EQ pedal for now. Let's start with a classic Ibanez Tube Screamer. I've also put the Boss SD-1 with this as well, just because it's another really popular overdrive pedal with a similar sound to the Tube Screamer. I've tried to match the EQ as best I can, but it's really hard to get it exactly the same. I've just got as close as I can. One of the main differences I can hear between them is that the Tube Screamer and the SD-1 sound a bit more compressed. I can almost feel it more than I can hear it. When I hit hard, it's got a softer attack on those pedals, and notes ring out just a little bit longer. The OD-3 in comparison is just like a little bit more open, it's a little bit more dynamic, just responds differently. I'll play these into an amp set clean as well as on the edge of breakup, just because a lot of people who use these mid-focused overdrive pedals, they sound really good into an amp set on the edge of breakup to send it into further overdrive. So that's what I'll do. See what you think. Tone Censura is the fanciest Klon clone that I own, so I'll be using that here. Notice the difference in the gain settings. The Censura is a much cleaner sounding pedal than the OD-3 really. I managed to get close to the EQ sound just by using similar settings that we were using to get the Tube Screamer sound, but just flattening out the peak of that mid boost a little bit, and at the same time making a steeper drop at the outer edges of the treble and bass. The Censura seems to compress in a different way as well. When I play lightly on the OD-3, the overdrive sound cleans up, you know, you get a cleaner sound, and you also get a bit of a volume drop as well. When I do the same thing on the Censura, the overdrive sound cleans up in a similar way, but that cleaner sound is then sort of louder and clearer compared to the OD-3. See if you can hear what I mean. I'll play this through a clean amp as well as a dirty amp. One of the original amp in a box type pedals, the Marshall Blues Breaker is also what a lot of other popular overdrive pedals are based on as well, like the Analog Man King of Tone, the JHS Morning Glory, the Wampler Pantheon, and there's loads of others as well. It's almost like a genre of overdrive pedal all of its own, but this is the original one anyway. The settings on the EQ pedal are getting a little bit flatter now, and the Blues Breaker is similar to the Klon in that when you turn the gain control up, it changes the EQ. Mainly boosting the mids, but the Blues Breaker is a bit more subtle than, say, the Tube Screamer or the Klon in its mid boost. It's a little bit flatter, and it's mainly boosting like the lower mids. See what you think. Overdrive sound. So I really like the Nobels ODR-1, particularly for low output single coil pickups like in this Strat, where the OD-3, that open airy sound that the OD-3 has in the top end, can sometimes get just a little bit harsh, especially like with a setup like this where I'm going through a blackface Fender amp with a Jensen C12N in, which is a speaker that's known to be bright. You can just get a bit too much in that high end. The high end can get a bit too open. So the ODR-1 just has this really nice big full bass, a nice low end, and the top end just rolls off in a really nice musical way, just to reduce any harshness. It's still nice and clear, but it just takes any harshness away. So I really like this setting. If, like me, you like the sound of the OD-3, but just with certain setups or certain single coil pickups or something like that, you just find that high end a little bit harsh, then this is definitely a good setting to have a look at. Not a great deal to do here. I always thought of the full Tone OCD as kind of more modern sounding and with a bit more of a mid scoop and a bit more compressed than the OD-3, but having them side by side like this makes you realise how similar they sound. There's not a lot to do on the EQ pedal at all, just a little bump on 3.2K. See what you think. Okay, there are obviously limitations to what I'm doing here. I'm only trying to match one setting from each pedal, so I've tried to go with what I think are the most common settings sometimes for these pedals, but be aware each individual pedal will have its own sort of amount of flexibility and its own range in the controls that make it unique. So just bear that in mind. Hope you found this video interesting though, and if you did, think about liking the video and maybe subscribing to the channel, and thanks for watching.